Welcome to day number 38 of the Saratoga Talking Horses, a day that is always the biggest day of the year. It's the day that the man who has ruined the lives of more horse players than anyone in history, the great, the legend Andy Byer, joins me.
Well, thank you for that introduction.
I think you would concur.
Yeah.
The man who 49 years ago said on television that I had a real chance to become a real degenerate. A man who made a great prediction then. He's had some mediocre predictions in between, but a guy who has had a great influence on me and many horse players out there. Welcome back.
Well, thank you. I look forward to this head-to-head showdown, like more than the Kentucky Derby.
Well, I don't blame you for that because you haven't picked the winner of the Derby. Actually, I think do you like Medina Spirit? I think you and I both like Medina Spirit,
yes.
And he was subsequently disqualified for a drug violation. Nonetheless, he did pay off at the windows, but it's great to have you here. And we have a lot to talk about with 13 races, so we're going to get right to work. Head over to Naira Bets. If you're not a member of Naira Bets, no better time than the present. Use the promo code SPA250 and we'll match up to $250 of your initial deposit. Check out track stats when you're over at Naira Bets as well. Also, we've got a $10,000 hit and split. Late pick fives here and Monmouth, $5,000 on each. Opt in over at Naira Bets for that. We also have a cross-country Big Five with Monmouth. 2 at Monmouth, 3 here, including the Prioris and Spinaway to close it out. The Spinaway, one of 3 remaining Grade 1s on the card. Sarah Live, 12 until closing the last race on Monday. We'll be on for, I believe, 54 consecutive hours. Actually, I'm kidding. It's 55, but no, we'll be on from 12 to 7 today and tomorrow as well on FS2. All right, Andy, race number 1. Race number 1 will show Friday's Surprise running second with Tappert's Temper, a distant third last time. And I am taking a smaller shot against against Friday's Surprise. You are pretty strongly against this horse, who won't be favored because of all the steam on the Pletcher horse.
Yeah, this is a really interesting race to me because the conditions for horses who've sold for less than 50,000 basically excludes, well-bred horses and elite stables. Well, a funny thing happened. The sire of Printer's Alley, 1,000 Words, was a stallion with a $5,000 stud fee. But when he started going to the 2-year-old sales, he became kind of a hot commodity. One of his offspring sold for $150,000. So he became, fashionable enough to be included in the Todd Pletcher barn. So it's Pletcher against a lot of trainers, who don't challenge him very often, and so Printer's Alley's not only got Pletcher, but he worked recently, against a colt who ran yesterday and ran very, very well, and he was kind of on
the turf. The horse you worked with won on the turf.
But he's like a good horse, and Printer's Alley was on even terms with him. I mean, I think this horse is a standout. I don't believe the big figure on Friday's Surprise at Parks. I mean, 4.5 furlong races for 2-year-olds are notorious for being misleading.
Right, but even the 62 last time could make him a factor in this race, and he did lose to a very hot horse with workout reports last time out. I think it's impressive that you've smoked out the 6-5 morning line Todd Pletcher, Irad Ortiz, first-time starter with fast works, and I get it, and he may just win, but his workouts have been good, and the recent workouts are more relevant than his 2-year-old sales work. He sold for $32,000 because his workout was awful at the 2-year-old sales.
Okay.
I mean, that doesn't mean he's not a different horse for Todd, and I respect that, and he'll probably win here at a very short price. I'm not jumping aboard. I get it. I'm betting on the 8, America's Honor. America's Honor is a horse that I was interested in on August 21st when he was in a race that was rained off the turf. Unfortunately, they were able to get into Delaware the next day and run badly on the turf there. And, he wasn't going to ship up anyway for a race that was undoubtedly going to come off the turf. But his first race is a race where horses have come out of that race and improved their figures 20 or more points in a few occasions, and he had legitimate trouble in there, was galloping out very strongly at the end, and to me his 19 fig is probably closer to 40, and he had real trouble. Do I really love him in here? No, but he's a buried horse that's going to be a square enough price in a race that, other than the first-time starter and the sort of quasi-reliable Friday Surprise, I have nothing else to say.
Okay. Well, don't knock me too much for picking chalk on this card.
There is a lot of chalk.
I must remind you, since you didn't tell the audience, that 2 years ago I picked 9 winners on top.
By avoiding chalk.
And so I'm trying to outdo that today, so I might have to take a couple short prices in the mix.
So that's a very early admittance that you're chickening out on today's card to try to pick a bunch of winners when we're supposed to be here trying to make our fellow horse players money.
There will be some bombs.
I hope so. Race number 2 on the turf. We'll take a look at, obviously the video is out, guys. I forgot to say, Helicity did not get in. There's not a lot to go on. We've both gone with Statesman, who was reined off the turf first time out and has plenty of turf pedigree for Shug McGay.
Yeah, I like this horse. When we think of turf trainers around New York, it's Chad Brown, it's Christophe Clement, but Shug McGahee has got some really good stats. I mean, with 2-year-old turf horses over a period of time, he's got 19% winners, and I like the fact that this horse had a sneaky trip in his debut. It looks like kind of nothing on paper, 3rd by 10, but he really made a pretty good late to middle move. So this is a live horse from a live barn. I think he's going to win.
There obviously are enormous amounts of unknowns here. I think the 2 Authentic Gallop from my friend Tom Amos, who comes out of a race where the pace collapse, could be a little dangerous in the front end. I just wish this horse had a little bit of turf pedigree because it's really a very strong sort of synthetic and dirt family, but it's not a good turf family. I have Statesman on the top as well. I guess with early adopter, the Loop de Vega purchased at Tattersall for 2nd. I know absolutely nothing about this horse. And you have the 5 Battle Drum for Todd Pletcher, another horse from Europe, 2nd. I have the horse 3rd, but Todd's numbers with 2-year-old firsters and turf routes, both here and everywhere, are particularly weak.
Yeah, this sire is kind of unknown to me, but he was a grade 1 in France. Chad has had a lot of these C unis in his barn, so he's got to be okay, and he got a B workout from the DRF Clocker.
From the turf workout?
Yeah.
Oh, excellent.
No, from his. I think it's from his last workout on dirt, but at any rate, he's not a throwout.
No, I mean, there's nothing that's really jumping off the page in here. I have a feeling, though, that our horse is going to be a favorite, and I don't think they're going to get 9-2. But the problem of the morning.
I'll take the short price.
Yeah, no, I picked him too, and I think he's the most reliable horse to take. I imagine, and I don't have David's morning line in front of me, but I imagine that he had the 3 taking a little money, but also he had the horse in the AEs, the 11 and 12 in particular, and even the 13 taking money. So probably a very tricky morning line to make with so many of the horses on the also eligibles being horses that would have taken money in here. Race number 3, I'm going 5.5 in the turf. I'm going to start with Nano Man, who you have 2nd and I have on top. I mean, I don't totally trust this horse, to say the least. I don't know where this race came from, but if he's able to run back to this horse, this race, I just think he's a cinch in here, but I don't trust that he's going to run back to it, but I'm not picking against.
Well, I think the 3 Twisted Filigree has certainly got good dope. I mean, off a...
We'll get to that horse next.
Yeah.
Do you have... I sent you the replays, Andy, so that you would pay attention to them and you would know.
Okay.
This is a very organized show. I know it's the first time you've watched it, but we like to go through the replays and talk among... I'll put the script here so you can look, since you didn't read the email I sent.
Okay.
Anyway, you obviously have nothing wrong with Nanoman, but let me put it this way. We'll show the race that Twisted Filigree ran on the turf 2-back and last turf race, and I betted that in that day, and he ran very well. But don't you think Nanoman's race is a little bit better?
Well, maybe, but I mean, Twisted Filigree was in a duel with a fast horse, Saratoga Banker, and he's off a long layoff. So I thought that was pretty good too.
No, I'm not against him. I picked him 2nd. I think the question in this race comes down to, in some ways, what you do with Haymackett's Jack, because if he were to break, he'd be a problem for Twisted Filigree, and he'd probably be a problem for everybody in here. But the problem with him is he has gotten left in both of his starts since coming off a long layoff. And I know Irad's riding today, but he is completely unreliable to get out of the gate.
Yeah.
And not only does that affect, obviously, how he runs in this race, how he finishes, but it also affects the race, because if he doesn't break in here, Twisted Filigree may find himself on a merry chase.
Well, I'd be happy with that.
Okay. Anything else you want to share
No.
here? Race number 4. Andy got his first break of the day when they scratched the number 6. Cowboy Luke considers that a break. But, you know, let's go to the race with conniving and shaking the bell. And I think it's important to discuss this race because I have an extremely strong opinion.
Well,
You don't want anybody out of this race because when 6 horses are across the wire, and I mean, the horse that won, no, I want you to look, is 7th right now.
Yes.
And I picked this horse. How this horse won this race is like a Ripley's moment. And this, to me, was as bad a maiden race as we'll ever run in Saratoga, and you're supposed to pitch everybody out of it for the rest of their careers.
I could have scripted that
It's
before
true.
the show, because these are the kinds of the horses coming out of that race are the kinds of horses you properly hate, and then throw them out and go and start looking for an alternative.
And you picked them 1, 2, 3, and only scratched into 1 and 2.
Because I looked at all the alternatives and I disbelieved all of them. I mean, I don't want the I know you love to pick Chad Brown. I just didn't want this horse.
Well, he's winning at 25% at the meet. I don't think that's a particularly stupid idea to pick
not
him.
with. I mean, they paid $425,000 for him. They dropped him for a tag. Now he's in for 20 before they even try him on the on the turf.
On a sloppy track mile race, he still ran a figure that's comparable to the figure those horses ran. And his first start going a mile. You don't think he's more likely to win this race than these horses? A proven loser like Shaking the Bell, who's now lost at 4-5 and 8-5 in his last 2 starts?
Look,
I mean, he's had a lot of opportunities on some very soft spots.
Look, I hate them all. Don't ask me to.
What about the 9? Okay, so let's show the 9's first race. So either you need to fix this 60 figure, which is a fair argument given the horses that finished first and third have not done particularly well in subsequent starts, but have first and second. Having said that, if that 60 is accurate, what's wrong with this horse getting back to the dirt? Isn't he the right alternative? And unlike Chad Brown, I don't think that our friend Nick Zito is going to take a ton of money.
That's for sure. But the top 2, look, horses. Even when the figure is right, horses, just sometimes run lousy out of a given race. The top 2 ran back terribly, and I didn't want to use them.
All right.
So
I'm 7-9. Andy is opting into the blanket finish on July 24th. This is really, I'm going to tell you, this is an embarrassing moment for you. It's not quite as bad as picking so high on the show last year, but it's up there. We'll see what happens. Now we have a significant interest in race number 4. Race number 5. I think you and I are going to agree in race number 5, and I don't agree with David's morning line. I can't understand a scenario where federal judge is more than 6-5 in this race. We show his race. I mean, I don't know what to say, but if he runs back to this race, going a half a furlong less, he looks to me like the absolute lone speed in this race. I mean, he looks like he should pay $280 in here on paper, doesn't he?
Yes, and that was a really solid pace figure as well.
Full Screen made a run. The third horse came from the clouds.
Yep.
Full Screen's not a bad horse. I mean, I thought this horse was a virtual cinch on paper.
Well, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I would love to bet him at 2-1. And listen, I have respect for Accretive, and we'll show his last race. Accretive's last race is a very interesting day here. Because this was a day where I believe we ran 6 dirt races. And the first 5, there is absolutely no doubt that it was a gold rail.
Right.
And then I think we had an hour and a half between races. And we came back, and this race was run closer to a dead rail than a gold rail, but certainly no comparison to it being the gold rail we had seen before. Okay. And Accretive ran well behind a horse, Scotland, that unfortunately I don't think worked since that race and looked like he was going to be a contender in the forego in his next start. And Accretive has run plenty of good races, and I know why David did this. It's a Chad Brown drop down, it's Irad Ortiz, and he's obviously splitting hairs at 9-5 and 2-1, but gee, I don't trust this horse. He's a little unreliable, and the 5 just feels like he is at least reliable.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, where's his bad race? The 5s.
I know. I was glad that Cox scratched his other horse because I thought he was pretty dangerous too. I thought this
we
was
know he's not. Do we know he wasn't a vet scratch? It may not have been
I don't know.
I mean, obviously, the other horse in here is the Flying P, as they're pulling out all the stops, 3 behind Klarovich now for the owner's title. But, geez, wouldn't this horse have to really step forward for them to beat both the 5 and 6?
I would say so.
All right. Race number 6 will break after 7. Is that good, guys? Race number 6, 5.5 on the turf. Let's start with the number 6, Brindio. You have him top and I have second. I have nothing against this horse. I thought ran very well first time, Andy.
Yeah, I found this race rather interesting because it is like loaded with expensive pedigrees, and expensive pedigrees that ought to be on the dirt. And you know, I look at a horse like Authentic, number 9 Tam I Am, a son of Authentic, sells for $300,000. I mean, a Kentucky Derby winner. You know, if you spent $300,000 for this horse, wouldn't you be looking to go distance on dirt? I mean, why is this horse in for 5.5 on the turf? And
because I'm guessing she shows them absolutely nothing in the morning.
Well, I think that could be said for many of the horses in this race who've also got, you know, like mostly dirt pedigrees. I mean, Brindy is a horse who is supposed to be sprinting on the turf. I mean, No Nay Never was a Grade 1 European turf sprinter. He was second in the Breeders' Cup turf. Christophe Clement is, legendary. Is a great turf trainer. I mean, this horse has everything, and I think he will crush these horses.
Oh, okay. I doubt that, but that's fine. But okay, I don't disagree with some of that, but here's the problem. The 3 Moonlight Promises was entered twice on the turf, and while it's not a half to turf horses, the dam did win on the turf, and it's clear that Mark Cassie, who's having a pretty good meet, wants to run this horse on the turf. And by the way, John Kakamis in the building. It's good to see you, our cameraman. A little under the weather. Good to see you. You don't have this horse anywhere. The 7 Bourbon Milk Punch clearly has a significant turf pedigree, and you don't have this horse in the top 4. So while I agree with you, there's a lot of horses that don't have turf pedigrees, you've left out 2 significant well-meant turf horses, right?
Yeah, I was a little put off by Jack Sisterson's 0-for-27 record with first-time starters on the grass.
Well, he's been pretty live at this meet.
Well,
I mean, he ran
okay.
3rd at a reasonable price with a horse bred to go long in yesterday's 5.5 furlong turf race, and it seems like he's brought some of the right horses here. I have no argument against the 6. You're obviously right. This horse will be a short price. This is the horse to beat. But I'm going to take Laurice in here, a horse they paid $460,000 for after this impressive sales work. I thought this horse's sales work was extremely good on synthetic, and while the dam was unraced and she had 1 full try the turf, the horse didn't run that badly on the turf. The second dam got an 86 buyer on the turf and was a pretty reasonable turf sprinter. So this horse has a lot of intention to be a turf horse, a very good sales work, and I think is a perfectly logical alternative to the number 6, and you don't seem to disagree. You've got him 3rd.
Yep. But Bulb Toro was
Been a pretty decent
freaky
turf sire.
Okay.
Been a decent turf sprint sire, so I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
See what happens, but I don't disagree. Brindy's the horse to beat, but I'm going to try the firster to beat him. Race number 7. I thought this was one of the more interesting races on the card, and not an easy race by any stretch of the imagination. And we'll start with Zadorsky, who will probably be a lukewarm favorite. You have 3rd, I have 4th. I do think this horse ran very well last time, and the win, the race 2 back is better than it looks. But I do wonder a little if this horse was helped by the wet track a little bit.
His previous wet track race, wasn't that good. So,
But he wasn't that good back then.
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I was waiting for you to have a brilliant opinion here because I've kind of struck out here.
Well, I mean, the horse that you've taken, we'll take a look at. There's a Silver Lining winning 2 back at Churchill. I'll let you talk about her, but there's a very reasonable reason to make an argument for this horse.
Well, there's kind of a moderate amount of speed in this race. I mean, he's a speed horse on the rail, and last time. Was chasing a very fast pace on the outside. Now, I have a note that you thought this was a gold rail day.
It was.
Well, that's your opinion, but
You don't think this was a gold rail day?
Let's say I believe your opinion enough that I put it in my notes.
I think it was a gold rail. I think she was badly compromised by being wide. I think she's entirely unreliable for a barn that is aggressively running their horses. They have not run her back now for 7 weeks since that race, so it makes me wonder a little bit. Maybe there weren't races for her. We'll see. She's very dangerous in here. Every horse that the Flying P stable runs is very dangerous, so I'm not going to be surprised. But I thought that Kara's time would be outside of her with speed, and I'm worried a little bit that Kara's time was scratched a few weeks ago. So I wonder if I can totally trust her coming back, but I thought her form since coming back has been absolutely terrific. I mean, she runs that big number at Aqueduct, and then you're saying, okay, I want to see it again. Well, she got involved. I was Princess Madison and Rosewell are pretty good horses, one of them being a Phil Bauer horse, and I thought she ran very respectably in there, and obviously you don't disagree. You've got her second in there, and I mean, if she is reliable to run back to those races, I think she's very tough in here.
Could be. You know, when I hear you and other analysts on the show talk about, well, somebody's going to be inside speed or sitting on the outside, I think that's really overrated. I mean, just let them run, is my opinion.
Well, what am I missing about that? That's what I would like horses to run too. But aren't the 1 and 5 the two speeds in here, and it's not clear
yes,
who will be in front of the other one?
Right, but I mean, do you feel that the 5, by being outside the other one, has a tactical advantage?
No, I don't. I mean, if the rail is good, I'd rather be inside. No, I don't believe that crap.
Yeah, I hear too much of it.
I agree. I think we overdo that. I think there is something to be said for the fact that you're better off being unencumbered outside. But, you know, having said that, isn't the 9 Misenchanted liable to go? And what if Misenchanted didn't like a wet track last time? Because her race 2 back is not bad.
Yep.
And she's not impossible, and she might get a very good stalking trip. I also think the 3 best impression is the Wise Guy horse in this race. Because I know those figures are too low, but they were 6 months ago. And this horse has every right to improve enough to get closer to an 80, which is still probably too slow. But I don't think this horse was that bad, and I think is a little bit interesting coming back, but just found herself in a very tough spot. But if you want a price horse, I think she's the one you want.
Yeah, the gap in figures is a little too much for me to swallow.
She can improve. We'll see. We'll take a quick break, hear from our friends at Saratoga Water, and I'm going to berate Andy on the final 6 races on today's card.
For almost 150 years, the Saratoga name has been synonymous with the finest quality, sustainably sourced spring water available anywhere. Saratoga carries on the rich tradition of its forefathers by crafting each stunning blue glass bottle with the same attention to detail and care that has been its hallmark for generations. Visit SaratogaSpringwater.com today or ask for us by name at your local market or restaurant. Saratoga Spring Water. Make every day exquisite.
Welcome back to Talking Horses, the legendary Andy Beyer and the legend in his own mind, Andy Serling, on today's Talking Horses. This is an interesting race, and I was actually interested to see you and I pick the same horse, tap into this. And I'm curious how this race is going to be bet based on the number 5 in here in firsters. I thought this horse, Andy, we did not show the start of this horse's race because I stupidly didn't show it. I thought this horse ran very well after breaking slowly and thought it was an impressive race. And even though the winner came back and ran poorly, quite a few have come out of it and run very well.
Yeah, I watched the head-on of this race a while back with interest, and you know, the 6 furlong races at Churchill kind of come from a semi-chute, you know, onto the main track that curves around. And this horse was down on the inside and had to kind of swerve a little bit away from the rail and steadied, and he was back to last. And he was a good, despite what the running line says, he was a good 8 lengths behind early, and made up a lot of ground. I thought it was a good effort, and then subsequently the 4th and 5th place finishers both came back to win. So
and the 6th place, the 4th winner came back and improved 10 points, the 5th 28 points, and the 6th 33 points. So it was, and you know, I know the winner did not run well coming back in the stake, but I'm going to go more with the other data. I agree. I thought this horse, and the other thing about this horse is I'm guessing will have much more speed today. You know, these Asmussen horses usually do in their second starts. Dapper Moon, who I have nowhere, and you have third, is a very interesting horse. And I know you people are going to relate it to incentive play, but I'm not. This horse did break a length slow. There was an enormous amount of conversation after this race saying that I know that incentive play won first time, but the horse you really want is the second place finisher. I completely disagree. Okay, I would say this horse was a bit green and it did break slowly, but the issue with this horse was getting this horse out in the clear. And it is when he gets out in the clear, as you'll see, he gets his momentum late and does do a lot of running, but was doing a lot of running in a race that was collapsing. And the winner at least had significant trouble on the backstretch and steady trying to move, and at least made a move into the race much earlier. Well, I thought this horse was just picking up pieces at the end. And I'm not saying he's impossible, but I think he's going to be dramatically overbet in this race.
You know, I thought, I mean, the other horse who has to be
It's the 9.
Considered here heavily is Our Favorite Son. I mean, I mean, not only is Phil Bauer winning everything in sight, I mean, this horse has some real good workouts, and he was in company with Too Sharp a couple works back. Too Sharp, who came out to win that smashing debut with a figure of 98. I mean, I was a little scared to pick against him, but I would say that this race is, you know, if you're playing sequential bets, you use the 3 and the 9.
Yeah, I probably should have had the 9 higher. I didn't realize who this horse was working with until way too late. And, I mean, I just thought, well, at some point, all of the Phil Bauer horses won't run, but the reality is that they apparently do. This is a homebred for them. There's a 1/2 to 1 horse that ran okay and 3 that couldn't outrun you and I in a horse suit. But I agree, this horse is working well. And, you know, he had that incredibly impressive 2-year-old that won here with a tough trip, and then he finished second to a Chad Brown firster, and he should have won the race. And the horse was an hour the best in there. So I agree, he's very dangerous. I put the Clarvis second. I don't know anything about this horse. It is interesting. It's a one of the things that caught my eye with Capricious Outcome is it's a practical joke, but it's all turf on the dam side, yet Chad Brown's running on the dirt. What about the 2 guns loaded in here, an $800,000 2-year-old that has really a pedigree for turf? I'm a little scared of this horse for Joe D'Angelo.
Yeah,
or Jose D'Angelo,
you know,
me.
between with the 3 and the 9 in here, I didn't want to look. I didn't feel I needed to look too more deeply, and you know, you have a low percentage barn, at least at this meeting, and
not a low percentage barn in general.
Yeah, but I mean, certainly the $800,000 price tag does catch your eye.
Yep. Race number 9 on the turf for race number 9, and I like Barrage in this race. We'll go back to this horse's second place finish back in November at Aqueduct, and this is a horse that, on his good days, is just so much better than these horses. I think it's not even close in general, and I don't think it's going to be a surprise to anybody that Ray Handel's having one hell of a meet, and his horses have been they ran very well early, and he had a sort of slow period where he didn't run a lot of horses, and now he's ready for the last week. And Barrage was rained off not long ago. He gets back in Ray's barn, and I think he's better than these horses.
I was waiting to see who you have picked here because I didn't have a good opinion. However, I
you picked a logical horse.
I did have an interest in Samburu, and this is kind of an interesting handicapping question. You look at his at the running line of his last race, the 24 and change, a half and 49.1, and it looks like he's you know, loping along on a slow pace lead, but the horse who was in front was like a pretty speedy sprinter, and then the speed pretty much collapsed.
Evaporated. I know.
And the race was dominated by closers. So I don't always fully trust published fractional times in turf races.
Me either.
So
for good reason. Well, I mean, it's interesting you bring that up because I in general, because of a lack of trust, I've gotten to the point, especially in turf routes, where the dynamics are more important to me than the
Yes.
posted times.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you see relatively fast paces and the races hold together.
Yeah.
And sometimes you see these paces like this. In fact, not sometimes, frequently, and they fall apart. And I do agree with that, and that's why I'm second.
Yeah, but I don't know. I just wonder if there are things I just don't understand, or if there's an erroneous time. But at any rate, I thought he ran pretty well. I mean, the race he ran next to last time, second to Battle of Normandy, who stepped up in class to win out of that race. That's good company. So he's a legitimate horse.
No, I don't have any argument. I think he's very clearly the second best horse in here, unless you believe that somehow Rambling Wreck is going to get his act together. Danny Gargan did finally win a race after having a very rough start to the meet, and his last race was awful. I mean, you're talking about that race, right? I mean, you have second here, but he was closing into a race that, as we said, was falling apart and really doing no meaningful running. But he is a horse that has back races that are good enough, and let's face it, you go through here, and there just aren't very fast horses in here, so there aren't places to go. I mean, I guess Unleash the Power's not impossible, but one of the reasons that I really like Barrage is I think if he runs his good race, he's just going to win here, because I don't disagree about the 9, but I'm not a big fan of Subaru. He's had relatively good trips. He's sort of a logical horse, where I think Barrage, who won't be 5-1, I think everybody likes this horse. He'll probably be half the price in here, but I'd bet him at 3-1. Race number 9, 10 the Prioress, and I'm going to harken back to one of my favorite Andy Beyer. This is a moment in Andy Beyer's career that encapsulates why you're the greatest. So the day the Prioress was run about 5 or 6 years ago, some will remember this, Andy came on the Fox show, and he was on for 2 races. And by the way, he's hankering to come on tomorrow to ridicule me for betting against Arthur's Ride. You can see how far the great man has fallen. But regardless, so Andy comes on, and the first race is a turf sprint. And he gives out this brilliant opinion. The horse pays like $32 or $33 or $38. And I'm thinking, this is like the greatest moment of my life. My hero, who gets unfairly ridiculed, came on and just showed everybody what a great handicapper he is. And then he comes for the Prioress. And he goes into a long, drawn-out speech how much he hates a certain horse in the race. And we go to break, and I said, Andy, you just gave an impassioned speech about how much you hate an 18-1 shot. Why are you possibly doing this? Nobody likes this horse. Nobody's betting it. And you're just going to set yourself up to look like a fool. And he did. The horse won and paid $38. So Andy Beyer is the only man that could appear on a television show, give out a $33 horse, and walk away looking like an idiot. It was one of the greatest moments in your professional career.
I don't remember a minute of this.
Well, I will say that I believe that the horse that won the Prioress was trained by a man who's now in federal prison. I think Jorge Navarro trained the horse that won the prize. I didn't disagree with your speech, don't get me wrong. I just disagree with doing it. But Andy also once did it. Andy used to do a seminar, since we have a minute, on the day before the Preakness. And it was Pimlico's special day. And Andy gave a long speech on the show, and you were in a panel, and against a horse that had run in Dubai, about how you're supposed to bet against these phony Dubai performances and blah, 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 blah. And I agreed with everything he said, except I went upstairs and I said, Andy, you're going to speak about a 6-1 shot in a 6-horse field. That horse was in Vasseur. I don't think he ever lost a race again, starting with the Pimlico Special for the rest of his career. So anyway, race number 10, the Prioress, and the conversation is about too sharp. And I got to tell you something. While I'm taking a small shot against her, I'm really looking forward to seeing her run again. Yeah. I do think that she benefited from a super gold, not a super gold rail, but a rail that was still good the day after the big rail. Yeah. And so maybe she should have only run a 92. She may be very, very good, though. And I don't have a big, strong opinion against. I just don't want to take her at a short price.
Yeah, there's no doubt this is one bias we won't be arguing about. It was very strong. And it's the kind of situation where, if the horse had just run a good race and won,
right, I agree.
You take a stand against, because you're supposed to take a position against horses who are bias aided, but this was just too big a race.
No, I agree. My problem is, and I'd love to, maybe I'm sort of imagining this. Don't you feel like that our lifetimes of the racetrack are littered with horses that run like huge maiden races and they jump them up to a stake in their next start and they go off at 4 to 5 and they're just great bet against.
Yes.
These horses, but on the other hand, given Phil Bauer's performance over the last few years, I don't know that he belongs in the category of mere mortals. Right. I mean, his horses just run incredibly well.
His show, he was never much on my radar screen until just this meeting. He's just been tremendous.
This is like 3 or 4 years in a row,
Yeah.
and he only trains for one outfit.
Yeah.
I mean, I imagine if he decided to open up his stable, people would be clamoring to give him horses, and I imagine Phil's given some thought to this.
Yeah.
But he does great work, guy. There's no doubt about it. Now, Brightwork, who you have second, I have a top, will show winning the spin away. I don't, speaking of trainers that have really impressed, John Ortiz brought a limited number of horses here, and they've done spectacularly. And you might remember this from last year. It might have been one of my only good opinions last year. Actually, I had a few last year. He shipped, she's beating Ways and Means, by the way. And Ways and Means was best. She had some trouble in the race, but still. And this horse has run a huge figure in the Adirondack in her prior race. John Ortiz shipped up a maiden from Ellis Park or something, or Indiana, that won the last race last year at 7 to 1. That was really a clever sort of put over horse that wired a field with Joel Rosario. And he has subsequently been very live. This horse, they thought enough to take a shot in the test off the layoff. She ended up having some issues in the paddock and was scratched, but she's right back. And I mean, you are talking about a horse that ran an 89 Beyer in her third career start, and then she came back and, ran a respectable race in the spinaway. And listen, obviously she went the wrong way. She also probably doesn't want to go long. And, I mean, she has credentials in here to run a Beyer in the mid to high 90s.
Yep.
So she could, and she's going to be a significant second or third choice in this race. And so I kind of want to take a small shot to beat the field with this horse.
Well, it's one of the two of them, that's for sure.
Well,
and, if you're playing picks, you go too deep and maybe you can have a free chance to beat the shot.
You say that, but the second choice of the line is Tricky Temper.
Yeah.
And I tip my hat to my friend Jeremiah Engelhardt, who this is the fourth race of this meeting and fifth at Saratoga. And listen, a lot of people, myself included, question him running her back in just 14 days last time after she had come back, just 14 days after her prior start. But who am I to knock the guy? This horse runs faster figures every single time she's run at the meet. Is he going the well too often, or is he doing like an old Alan Jerkins and saying, I've got a good horse, I'm going to keep running her?
Well, I remember when good trainers used to run good courses often.
Jeremiah, and I know you're listening, Andy Beyer just referred to you as a good trainer. I'm not gonna editorialize on that. I just want you to know this could be the highlight of your training career. No, I'm really interested to see what she does. Because she was terrific last time. Lilu isn't a killer, but she disposed of her like a claimer, and she's pretty good. I thought she ran well. What do you think of the one, the horse you have fourth and I have third? I mean, she does have that big figure two back, and I know she bombed last time, but I don't have a big argument with the big number she got two back, and at least somewhere in there she has a fast race.
Yeah, I just think that, like the two favorites have such strong-looking paper that I'm not digging deep to get some sleeper in this situation.
All right. Well, I hope you dig deep in the spin away, because I think there's an awful lot to talk about in this race. But lo and behold, Andy's taken the Queen's MG as we move on to race number 11, and we'll show her last win. And no, this is not a win. This is her Schuylerville win. And Sherbini does make this crazy run in here. On the other hand, she made the run because the race was collapsing. I thought this race was better than her win in the Adirondack.
This horse really confused me, because when we made the figure on the Adirondack, my first reaction was, this has to be an aberration. These horses, with the winner winning by 9 lengths, it had to be in the 80s. But my partner, Mark Hopkins, who makes the figures in New York, argued against that, and he said, the pace here was so hot that just, lots of horses just went off form chasing this pace, and this bad-looking number was correct, and I was won over to that point of view. But when the pace for the Adirondack was really, really fast, and the fact that the Queen's MG was pressing it, and then
same thing in the Schuylerville. Same situation in the Schuylerville.
Ran everything. I mean, I really have to respect her performance, and almost never would I bet a horse who wins by a mile with a lousy figure.
Well, I mean, what you're saying is actually really interesting for any of us that look at Timeform US figures as well, because they have the race 10 points faster, both of her last two, and they're a pace-based number.
Yeah.
So their figure backs up exactly what you're saying, and they're saying that this is really a figure that in performance was closer to an 83 to 85 because the pace was so strong, and I don't have any argument with that. And she's been terrific. I'm not going to argue that. She is a horse that your figures are accurate for the way you make figures, and you can't deviate from what you do. But people have to learn to interpret figures. And I think it's one of the reasons the Beyer figures will get knocked. And I think it's a good thing about the Beyer figures, because I want a raw time. A handicapper can look at a figure and say, that horse got a 95. It was an accurate number, but I think it's really closer to an 85 because of certain factors.
Right.
And the same thing, you can look at a 73 and say it could have been an 85 based on the way the race was run. I think it's, people will say, you're a slave to figs. I'm a slave. It's not true. You have to be able to analyze the races and ask yourself how the figure was earned.
Yeah,
and I think this horse is a great example of that, and I have no argument with it.
Yeah.
But I picked against her because that's what I do. The obvious horse to take against her is the one that we both have second in Quiet Side. But she was really good first time out. But, I remember a discussion that you had with, I think, with Seth Klarman and I about 2-year-old fillies, because Separation of Powers had run a 90 figure in her debut. And she came back in the spin-away in a 5-horse field and stunk and got like a 57. She subsequently won the Frizette in her next start, and she ended up winning the test next year and proved to be one of the faster horses of her generation. But you were saying to us that this is something you have seen over and over again with 2-year-old fillies. They run good numbers in their debut, and they come back and inexplicably run bad. Like the Queen's MG, who inexplicably ran terribly in her next start, where she was favored and followed up with 2 big races. And it makes me a little bit reticent, particularly about big-numbered horses coming back. I don't trust any of these horses, even though I've taken one that broke their maidens in their first starts. How do we know they're going to run back to these races?
Yeah, well, 2-year-old fillies seem to be a special issue in this discussion, because they do it a lot. and have that inexplicable regression.
And it's hard, because I thought Quiet Side until that Chad Brown freak show that won here on the Friday before the Travers was the best 2-year-old filly maiden breaker we had seen, and subsequently was going to be a player in the spinaway, and I think she still is. And I'm hoping she does well, but I don't totally trust her in here. What about my horse Pondering? I thought that this horse, who broke slowly in there and was heavily bet, I thought, as we take a look at Pondering's last race, that she ran really well in here. And I'm going to trust in Brendan Walsh to come back here. There are 2 Godolphins. My smart friends, David Aragona and Nick Tamero, like Immersive, the other one, and I greatly respect their opinions. I like this one. I thought if Brendan's shipping this horse here, he wouldn't do it unless he really thought that she might be the goods.
Yep. I mean, certainly her figures are right with everybody else, and I can't knock her.
What about Strong State, the number 9, who had trouble in her debut, has had the whole meet to get ready for this race after winning on opening day? I thought she ran really well and will not be swayed. While she lost her next start, she came back to duplicate the figure.
Yeah, she did benefit from a real soft pace on the lead, and so I kind of downgraded her from that standpoint.
Okay. Anybody else you want to talk about in here?
No, I think the 8 and the 11 are the key ones, but this is actually there is one horse that maybe this might have been a little quirky that I picked in my top 3. The 3-horse Reliable
She's fast.
Source gets just a humongous pace figure, and in her last race, forget the 56. I mean, she ran hard, but before earning that, and. In a race where a lot of the other speed horses, I mean, except for the Queen's MG, a lot of the front-running types aren't that quick. I think she's gonna,
She's fast.
Yeah,
I mean, that was a crazy pace. It's funny. I'm waiting to see Margot's Angel, the horse that dueled with her, come back. The second horse came back and basically reproduced her number, but she was sucking up for pieces at the end as opposed to this horse. I agree. I'm curious what she does, and she does feel like this.
Yeah, well, I mean, with these bad-looking figures, that is the kind of horse who could pay $30.
I agree. This is a very, very interesting race here, and I don't disagree with the Queen's MG. The question sort of is, what maiden breakers can run back to their numbers or even run better, and because they're all not going to suck in their next start, but it does happen a lot.
Right.
Race number 12, I'm sorry to see Nisi Marie scratch out because she's got to run at Kentucky Downs. I hope they get in her next start. She's been terrific, and I mean, there are sort of three players in here. Can we start with the New York handicap and Warlike Goddess? I would have shown her last race or even another race because she won, but she did not have the best of trips in the New York here, 2 races back. She was a little 2 to 3 wide in the first turn, and Junior Alvarado never got to get her sort of out in the clear to make her run. She is down in the no, that's the eventual runner-up. She's behind her in the blue cap and the red and white, and this wasn't Junior's fault. It's just very hard to go. She's a big field. I just think when she runs her best race, she's better than these horses.
She's the class of the field, and whenever I see her, I have in a race, I have one memory: September 3rd, 2022, which is in the PPs, the day that I picked 9 winners on top with you. And
you could have had 10 if she won. Tough noogies.
Let's see, I would have had 10 if Joel Rosario had not been dead last early behind a half and 53.
So Joel Rosario kept you from even greater greatness?
That's correct. I'll never forgive him.
When I immortalize Andy someday, I'll say the man whose life immortality was ruined by Joel Rosario. Joel, you did the rest of the world a favor. And I will say one thing. I know McCulloch beat her in the Glens Falls last year. And obviously, I hope McCulloch does well. We'll get to her in a second. But okay, I guess we won't get to my point because we'll show her here. McCulloch ran great in here. I know she saved some ground, but she circled wide, ran her best figure ever. And, I mean, one thing to say at least about McCulloch, she continues to be in good form. But what I was going to say about her victory over Warlike Goddess last year was that Warlike Goddess got very rank in the Glens Falls last year on Joelle, and she was close to the pace and ranked throughout the race. And so McCulloch, who got this very good, comfortable trip, ran her down when she just was very difficult to handle. And if she's able to comfortably rate near, I think she'll get it done. Now, there is an interesting pace scenario in this race because on the surface of things, and if you look at the Timeform US Pace Projector, you're going to say that Eternal Hope is loose in this race. And that would make her very dangerous and agreeably dangerous in here. And I never thought much of this horse because she's never been much. Having said that, the Godolphin horses, some have run better in their second starts. They do have a way of showing up. But for those of you that think she may be the controlling speed, I think you're ignoring the fact that Idea Generation is going to be going to the front in this race. She's clearly in here to be a pacemaker. So while Eternal Hope may still win sitting second to her, I don't think that she'll be clear in the front end because Idea Generation, who almost pulled an upset when second in the Weah last year, is going to be the speed and helping provide some pace in the race.
I don't know, trying to analyze pace scenarios at 1 3/8 on the turf is beyond my capability.
So you don't think she's clearly entered in here to be a pace setter?
I guess so, but her previous exercise on the lead, she went 6 furlongs and 1:17.
Well, that's
so,
usually good enough for a 2-length lead
Yeah.
in mile and 3/8 races on the turf here. That may be considered fast by some of the metrics
Right.
we've seen. But I think it's somewhat of a 2.5 horse race. But I do agree that Where Like Goddess looks tough, but I will be using McCulloch as well. Race number 13 reminded me of when I was working at Gulfstream and in the winter when I foolishly decided to torture myself with the 20 race cards for a winter as opposed to 4 days a week of 8 race cards in New York. And I would get through all of these races, and I'd get to the last race that we drew on Sunday on Friday's card, and like race 11 or 12 or 20 or whatever it was, and it would be a 5-furlong turf sprint for $10,000 claimers with 17 entered or something. And, you know, after this card and the 13th race, which thankfully at least was drawn on Sunday, you get to this absolute, you know, just incredible mishmash of horses. We'll show Jay Hirsch and Palace View running 3rd and 4th just for the sake of a video. I bet Jay Hirsch last time he was too big of a price, and he ran well, and I guess he has a chance. But, you know, I mean, the horse to beat in here is probably Devil's Got Cause for Dallas Stewart, who ran fine last time, you know, behind a slow pace that fell apart. But I just don't want any of the short prices on top in here.
Yeah, well, my selection in here was not a short price. I mean, I took the 8-horse Our Country, and I got to say this is a stab. But he you know, the horse got, you know, got into some traffic at the start and you know, went to the rail and was
Well, he broke slow is why he got in traffic.
And but he went to the rail and just was kind of steadying along for a long way. You know, he never had never had a a clear path until the very end, when admittedly he didn't kick it in.
That's my problem. I have a stat for you that you'll like.
Yes.
Mark Hennig, second off of a 6 to 12 month layup in turf routes, is 3 for 10 with 4 hitting the board and a 5.12 ROI. So this
makes
horse
him a
has
cinch, right?
you know, I mean, I'll tell you what's interesting. A horse going to take money in here. Listen, I gave this horse a long look, and I always root for my friends at Little Bluebird Stable to do well. But you know, like Kick-a-Buck is going to be one of the favorites in here. This is not a good horse, and I'm sure Chad Brown and Peter Brandt were happy to lose. Linda Rice, off the claim in turf routes, 1 for 31 over the last 5 years with a 51-cent ROI.
Right.
I mean, remarkable that they don't win for a trainer who not that long ago was like killed them on the turf, mostly with turf sprinters. I have no problem with any selection in this race. Front man is interesting, cutting back in distance. He couldn't get the distance. I don't know about coming back in a week, but he certainly, or you have second, not impossible. I'm betting Collect from Ike in here. And Collect from Ike's last race was a better field overall, and unlike Jay Hirsch, who had this just comfortable trip sitting on the rail, this horse was caught out in the middle of the racetrack the whole way around the track and never had a fair chance. And I think the race 2 back from Collect from Ike makes him a legitimate contender in here. This is a race that basically fell apart. Into You and Yo Daddy. Yo Daddy has improved dramatically as a horse in his subsequent starts, particularly on the dirt, but still. And this horse was cutting the pace. And it really didn't hold together in there, and I think ran a race that's good enough to get a piece of this and will be a huge, huge price in a race where I just don't like anybody.
Nor do I. And if I've got 12 winners going into this race, I'm not going to be counting my chickens.
If you have 12 winners going this race, it means you die, and then you've gone to some sort of racetrack hell where all your horses are winning, and you can't bet on them. So I wouldn't be too worried about sweeping the card, but you know, Andy's going to spend every year going forward trying to get 10 winners. But I think you can rest in the laurels of a 9 for 13. It wasn't just a 9 for 13. They also include like 2 or 3 big priced horses.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's great to have you here. It's great to have you in Saratoga. It's great to have you as a friend, and great to have you on the show as well.
Thank you.
So speaking for so many horse players, and the man that too many people love to hate, but they hate him because they love him, the great Andy Beyer, and thank you so much. You guys head over to Naira Bets and become a member. Use the promo code SPA250, and we will match with $250 your deposit. Check out Track Stats when you're there. Also, we have a $10,000 hit and splint in the Lake Big Fives here in Monmouth, cross country Big Five here in Monmouth as well, and the show from 12 to 7. The show that goes on forever from 12 to 7 today on FS2. Andy, thanks so much. It's a pleasure having you here, and thanks for watching. Frank Miramati revving up for the final 38 races of today's meet, starting now.
For almost 150 years, the Saratoga name has been synonymous with the finest quality, sustainably sourced spring water available anywhere. Saratoga carries on the rich tradition of its forefathers by crafting each stunning blue glass bottle with the same attention to detail and care that has been its hallmark for generations. Visit SaratogaSpringwater.com today or ask for us by name at your local market or restaurant. Saratoga Spring Water. Make every day exquisite.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time we ask that you please rise, remove your hats, and turn your attention to the winner's circle as well as the flagpole in the infield. We're very pleased to have with us for the singing of the national anthem. Once again, please welcome Journey Ray.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets regular, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Saratoga Racecourse. Thank you to Andy Beyer for his annual appearance on Talking Horses. The track is fast, the turf course is firm. Here are the changes. In the first race, number 3, Friday's Surprise, is now a single bug, so the corrected weight is 114 pounds. 9, Bernie Goes Boom, the jockey Dylan Davis. Race 2 kicks off the early pick 4. Number 3, Royal Presence, has been scratched. Jockey change for number 9, Executive. Javier Castellano will not be riding today. Junior Alvarado up. Scratch all the also eligibles, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. Third race, we start a mandatory payout pick 5 on races 3 through 7. Scratch the also eligibles. 10, New York Anthem. 11, Dunedin Causeway. And 12, Tall Paul. In the fourth, pick 4 on races 4 through 7. Scratch 3, Casona. Scratch 6, Cowboy Luke. In the fifth race, mandatory pick 5 payout, races 5 through 9. Scratch 2, Top Gunner. Scratch 3, Scoot Daddy. The jockey for 7 Oceans Reserve will be Ricardo Santana Jr. In the 6th, scratch 11, 12, 13, and 14, all of the also eligibles. The middle pick 4 on races 6 through 9. Race 7, mandatory payout pick 5. Number 2, Reliable Lady, make the jockey Ricardo Santana Jr. In the 8th, This scratch just in. Number 6, Makes Sense, is out. 9, Our Favorite Son, the jockey Florent Giroux. Scratch the also eligibles. 11, 12, 13, and 14. Race 9. First of all, the 8th does start the pick 6. The 9th starts the late pick 5. Number 2, Fly Right, the jockey Ricardo Santana Jr. That's the only change thus far. There are some main track onlys that are holding their spot currently. The 10th is the 77th running of the Prioris. Scratch number 6, Pacific Rose. There is a workout posted for number 8. Race 11, the 133rd running of the Spinaway, part of the Breeders' Cup Dirt Dozen. 6 salted make the jockey Ramon Vasquez. In the 12th, the 47th running of the Flower Bowl, win and you're in for the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf Division. Scratch 2, La Mahana. Note that 5, Millie Girl, the jockey Jose Lescano. Scratch 6, Nisi Marie. Scratch 10, Movie Moxie. And note that number 11, Amanda's Folly, will run in a cheek piece again. Cheek piece for number 11. And in race 13, number 8, Our Country, the jockey Luan Machado. Scratch 13, the Paddock Pastor. Scratch 14, Road Soda. Those are the only 2 scratches in thus far for race 13. Enjoy your day at Saratoga Racecourse. You'll have an opportunity today to take your picture with a piece of hockey history as you get a chance to be up close and personal with Lord Stanley's Cup. It will be on site today and today only. We'll keep you posted. That'll be taking place from 3 to 4 p.m. We will remind you later today. The Stanley Cup is here, and you can see it from between 3 and 4 at Saratoga Racecourse. Very special treat this afternoon. They'll be at the gate for the first in 23 minutes.
Horse racing? Check. Weekly promotions? Got 'em. Huge payouts? You bet. With Naira Bets. Download the app today and bet on any track, anywhere, anytime with live HD horse races, betting tips and tutorials, expert picks, and more. You bet with Naira Bets. Join now for a new member bonus at NairaBets.com.
The New York Racing Association welcomes you to Saratoga Racecourse. Your safety is our primary concern. If it becomes necessary to evacuate Saratoga Racecourse, please follow these guidelines to walk calmly out and away from the 1863 Club, the apron, the main building, and the backyard. Those in the 1863 Club basement area will go up the center staircase or the loading dock area staircase. Patrons and employees on the first floor use the loading dock stairs or exit out the main lobby exits or out the front doors. Turn right toward the loading dock area or turn left to the horse path and proceed out onto the track. Those on the second floor will walk down the main staircase and out of the building or use the pedestrian bridge over to the main building. Those on the third floor will go down the center staircase or the west end staircase down to the loading dock area and continue out and away from the building. If you're located trackside on the clubhouse apron, on the dining porch, or the grandstand apron, walk forward onto the track through the emergency exit trackside gates. Turn right or left and continue along the outside rail to the exits. As you're exiting, please be mindful of any horses that may be in the area. Those in the interior clubhouse and grandstand areas will exit out into the park areas in the rear of the building and continue out through gates A and B for the grandstand and gates C and D for the clubhouse area. Those located in the second floor clubhouse box seat areas, left or right of the winner's circle, will walk down the nearest unobstructed staircase to the apron area and proceed out the trackside gates onto the track. Turn right and continue along the outside rail to gate 10. Those in the club terrace dining and standing areas will utilize the metal staircases at the rear of the building down to the ground level and continue out gate C. Once in a stairwell, should you encounter smoke or other obstructions, leave the stairwell immediately and proceed to another stairwell. Those in the first and second level turf terrace dining areas west half will proceed down the west end fire escape to the ground level and continue out gate D. Those in first and second level turf terrace dining east half will take the east end staircase onto the clubhouse roof, then continue down to the ground level and out gate C. Third and fourth level turf terrace dining west half will utilize the rear or west staircase down to the ground level and proceed out gate D. Those in third and fourth level turf terrace dining east half will utilize the east end staircase or ramp down to the clubhouse roof, then continue down to the ground level and out gates C and D. If you are in the second floor club seating, sections D through L, or the grandstand seating, sections M through Y, including the stretch seating area, proceed down the staircases to the trackside apron and proceed out onto the track. Turn left or right and continue along the outside rail to exit. Those in the second floor easy-goer dining area will go down the staircases at the rear of the building to exit through the park and out gate B. Those in the paddock area and paddock tent will walk through the paddock and out the saddling area emergency gate. Please be mindful of any horses that may be in close proximity. Those in the other rear park areas will proceed out the nearest unobstructed gate. All egress aisleways and emergency exits must be kept clear of personal articles and items. Once outside, please continue away from the gates and await further instructions from public safety personnel. Elevators and escalators will not be in use during an emergency evacuation. Guest services and security personnel will be available to guide and assist ADA guests and anyone who may require additional assistance. This concludes our evacuation plan for Saratoga Racecourse. Thank you for being prepared in advance to respond calmly in an emergency. Enjoy today's events.
Father and son, Tony and Carson Gambaro, bring them onto the track for the first at Saratoga Racecourse. We're 5 minutes away from the beginning of the early